How do you talk to an employee who's refusing to get on board with a change? Your company is changing to a new software system. You're learning to use new technology. You're switching your systems over, but you got employees fighting back, pushing back. They're saying they refuse. How do you handle that? What can you do as a leader, as a manager? That's what we'll talk about today on the art and science of difficult conversations. Welcome to the art and science of difficult conversations. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lucie, and we love having difficult conversations.
That's right. And each week, we'll either share a tip, hear how others have gotten better at difficult conversations, or demonstrate common difficult conversations and what to do and what not to do.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to the art and science of difficult conversations, where we believe if you can communicate better, you can live better. My name is Chris, as always, and I'm joined here by Lucie. Lucie, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody.
We are at the end of summer, and it's a little warm here today in Boston, and humid. It's just hot and humid. What about you?
It's cooling off a little bit. It's still kind of the morning gloominess before the sun rises above the clouds. It's part of the morning layer, which is nice because it cools it off a little bit. And there was even snow in California in the mountains already. They said it hasn't happened for 20
Hmm.
years. Cool fact.
It's interesting because I never realized how big, like, California and Texas are so big. I never
Mhm.
realize, or I always forget how big they are, that you can have such different things going on in the state at different times.
Absolutely. It's one of the things I love about here, living here, because in one day I can go to the beach, I can go to the desert or to the mountains. And I love that variety.
Do you like the beach? Are you a beach person?
I like the variety.
You like variety more so than the beach?
Yes, yes. So I like the beach. I also love the mountains and just going for a hike sometimes. So I like the flexibility, I would say.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to spend like the whole time at the beach. I would be bored
Hmm.
because I'm afraid to swim in the ocean by myself. So that's
So
that.
there it is. That's the issue. That's the real issue.
So maybe if I could swim and wouldn't be afraid, but I have a healthy respect to the ocean, being born in inland basically. And we don't have
True.
ocean in Czech Republic. So
True.
yeah.
I never thought I would like the ocean, or I never thought of myself as a beach person. Like, I never didn't really care about the beach all too much. But now that I've lived near the beach for, I don't know, like 14, 15 years, I find it hard. I would find it hard to move somewhere more inland where there is no easy access to a beach.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'm the same way. It's difficult for me to move further away because it's also hot there, much way hotter.
True, true,
So I
true.
cannot go for my walks there because it's so hot.
Yeah, yeah, that's tough. But
It is.
well, funnily enough, today we're talking about a fun, happy topic that everybody loves. You, as a manager and leader, you're trying to get your employee on board with a technology change, and they are just pushing back. They're fighting back. They don't want to do it. Whether or not they had good performance before doesn't really matter, but they're pushing back now. They're refusing to use the new system. They don't want to learn the new system. They're your top performer, so you just can't eat. It's not as easy as, I'm just going to let go of this employee because they're your top performer. You kind of need them. They've been there a long time. They got all the institutional knowledge. They're a good role model to everybody else on the team, except for this one thing.
Except for that one thing.
Except for that one thing. So I guess, Lucie, what do you think when you're thinking about this, when you're thinking about an employee that's struggling to get on board with the change? And this could be part of lots of other things, but I think it's unique when it comes to technology because the pace
True.
of it moves so fast compared to other
Oh
types of
yeah.
changes.
Hmm.
So what are your thoughts? What are your best practices in terms of how a manager or leader can help their talk to their employee about this stuff?
I would say there are two different situations. One in a smaller company where the leader, the manager actually can get their buy-in before launching that change. So they could go create and
Hmm.
check in with them. This is and get really their buy-in by explaining the benefits really. having empathy, listening to their concerns, fears, and seeing if they can address it and how they could move forward. If they get a buy-in, the accepting of the change, it might be still difficult and there would be hiccups, but it would be way easier. But let's say it's a large
Mm.
corporation, somebody on the top made a decision and the manager just needs to announce it. This has been done and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have a say in the process of that. So what would be the first steps? I would say again, listening, being open, not pushing the change forward, but being open and listening. What are the concerns? What is the challenge? Is that maybe a lack of training?
Mm.
Or the training is not easy to understand and therefore they are being challenged? Or is that more because they are afraid that the technology will replace their job? And
Mm.
so there
Yeah.
is a different resistance, right, with the AI. Now, a lot of people are worried that if they basically learn to use that soon, it's going to replace them and their job.
Yeah.
So that's a little different resistance. So now really understanding where the employee is coming from, what is the true challenge, and then seeing how to address those concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And also, again, trying to get a buy-in, communicate the benefits, not just for the company, but also for the employee. Would that help streamline the process and therefore save, let's say, their admin time, which most of us don't like as much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they could
Yeah.
focus on the things that they actually like. And also clear communication about expectations, I would say. Maybe some timelines, what needs to happen, and keep the feedback loop open and set
Mm.
up maybe some check-ins, regular check-ins to see how they're doing. What's coming up for you? What would you say are some key things? Anything
I
that I
I
haven't
love all
mentioned?
those tips. I think I agree with all of them. I'm actually wondering as you're talking, I think it'd be helpful for us to talk through because I think there are lots of reasons why somebody might be resistant to technology or new technology change. And yes, one of them could just be they just don't like change in general. They're afraid of it. But I think there's always deeper reasons, as you hinted at.
Yep.
They might be afraid of it taking over their job, right?
Yep.
In AI or um and I think that's the important reality is that yes, for some jobs, technology will take it over. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important to acknowledge and there's no way a manager could ever know 10 years into the future, 15 years, what's going to happen.
True. Yep.
So it's just like I always advise managers not to promise a promotion or a raise in the future. Same thing. It's hard to promise like this will never change your job or this will never take over your job. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it might in some capacity. There's lots of jobs that don't exist anymore because of
True.
technology.
Yep.
Um, there could be they're afraid of learning, not afraid of like they don't like it, but more afraid of they may not feel like they're a good learner, or they may feel like
Great
it's too
one.
overwhelming if because of the way that other
Yep.
things are taught. Like if you're especially if you're a big corporation, if there's lots of big changes that happen all the time, they may not feel confident. And if they've been a top performer for all this time, suddenly if they're placed in a position where they're not a top performer or they have to struggle a little bit, it's unsettling for some people, especially if
Absolutely.
that ego, and not in a bad way, just ego, like their
Yep.
sense of self is threatened
Mm-hmm.
in some way.
Uncertainty in a way because I know
Yeah.
this old way I'm expert in it versus in the new way I have no idea what I'm doing. I might make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and they may not just understand why it needs to happen. Right. They might actually be okay with the technology if they understood the purpose of the new change, right? Or the technology or why it's happening. Especially because sometimes technology change might not even be more easy, it might be more difficult or complex.
True.
um there's in the past like 10 years, HR systems have become much more user employee managed, right? So instead of
Mhm.
HR having to input all your data, change things, employees can
Yeah,
go in and do the things on their own. And that's a big shift if you're not used to that. And so you're like, why
absolutely.
why I have to do this? Why do I have to put in my timesheet? Why do I have to do
It's
all this
their
other
job.
stuff myself? Yeah, it's somebody else's job. Why am I doing it? And
Yep.
so part of that is I just don't understand why. There's no good reason to do this. There's no context to what's happening. But what else? Why is there anything else that comes to mind for you about why somebody might be um, resistant to this technology or new technology?
think you covered it pretty well. A lot of the different causes in a way for the resistance could be also a worry from an increased workload.
Hmm.
Not only they need to get their job done, but they also need to learn and get the new training and learn the tool, which might be slowing them down rather than doing the things the old way.
Yeah.
Um, and that could tie again into not understanding, not having the buy-in into that this new way is better.
Right.
Maybe it's better for the company, but not better for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I so I think that's really crucial, understanding where they are coming from, because if we don't understand as the manager, it's really difficult to support them in moving through that. And some managers have approached, well, you just need to do it. Or now we are in the section, maybe what not to do. What would you say before I start? What would you say are the things what not to do here in this
What
situation?
not to do? Well, I think just telling them just do it. I think it's our way or the highway.
Yep.
Even though technically that is true, right? At a job that is our way or the highway, it's also you don't want to. That doesn't work. That's not going to bring lots of people over. Some people it might, and if you know them really well and you know they respond to that, then do it that way. It doesn't matter. They're going to respond to that. If you have people that don't respond to that, don't do that. That's not going to work.
Think you're bringing up great point that reminds me of different personality styles. Some people, they just need, give me what do you want me to do by when, I'll figure it out myself.
That's right.
No
Mm-hmm.
problem. For some people, if they are not considered the emotional concern, how they feel about it, and really they need a little bit more details, and they need to know why they're doing that so that they are motivated. With those
Mm-hmm.
people, if we don't consider their situation and their way of approaching change, then we have a complete disconnect. And that comes back to really being aware and knowing the person
Right.
rather than just pushing through. This is the change. This is that could work for some people, but not for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. And another don't, I would say, as a manager or leader, if you don't understand why this is happening, don't tell your people to do anything
It's a
until you
good
figure out
one.
why.
That's
If you don't know
mm,
why, go back and ask your manager or the leaders and say, listen, I'm still confused about this piece or that piece. I don't understand why we have to do this. Get clarity so
love
that
that.
you can buy into it.
That's a great one. And I've had managers that didn't, that were not themselves. It wasn't about technology, it was other changes in the company. And they were very deep motivated and they were supposed to motivate their team. So it's a very difficult situation. And I love
Mm-hmm.
how you brought it up. Also, really knowing that we understand as the manager why we're doing that. So we can actually get the buy-in from somebody else. And
Yeah.
even maybe dealing with the discomfort of admitting, well, I didn't really get it, like, and talking to their supervisor,
Right. And
which,
yeah, and because I think I've seen plenty of managers that um, get questions, pushback from their staff, or maybe not even pushback, just real well-meaning questions. Like, I just want to understand this. Like,
yep.
maybe the team's not opposed to it. They just don't know all the details. They want to know more about this. And the manager doesn't know that because they haven't asked enough questions themselves and they try to make it up. And so, because they're just making it up from what they understand, that it just kind of branches off what's going on with the messaging. It becomes very unwieldy. And then different teams now understand different parts of it, or
And a
maybe they even
chaos.
understand a
Yep.
totally different thing altogether because the manager was making up stuff on the fly.
So
So
there's
you're right. It's okay to
miscommunication.
yeah, it's miscommunication. It's okay to say I don't know. I don't know that. That's a good. I had a
Yep.
boss that was like that. Was really good about that. If we would bring up our opposition to new things all the time, and she'd say that's a good question. Let me go back and ask that. I think that's
Mhm.
perfectly reasonable to have
Absolutely.
that listening, as you mentioned earlier. Listen to what their concerns are. If you don't know the answer, bring it back, figure it out. Just say I don't know. I need to go back and figure this out.
That brings me to the point that all of us in difficult conversations, it's 100% responsibility on both sides. So
Hmm.
also that's the responsibility for how the manager manages their emotions. And if they get triggered, let's say when the employee asks something they don't know, are they going to just admit, yes, you know what? I don't know. And knowing that, admitting that manager doesn't know something doesn't mean they're a horrible manager or they're not worth
Mm-hmm.
anything. It just means it's a normal, especially nowadays, that we cannot know unless we get the implanted chip, maybe in the future, but not right now yet.
Yeah.
That is normal not to know, and it's normal to admit, and it doesn't have to be shameful. Because some managers, if they are not self-aware, let's say, or they don't manage the emotions, they may even push back. Why you're asking this question, you should already know that, or you didn't need to worry about that. Just do what I tell you to do. It could be
Mm-hmm.
for some managers kind of to push back on
Mm-hmm.
employees asking questions, which of course is very demotivating. And that's part of the what not to do,
Yeah.
ideally.
Yeah. And I think you're making me think of another thing also is not getting triggered by employees pushing back. I think there's lots of people, or there are some people that I know of that their personality style is they're always just going to push back when they hear about a change because change is hard in general for
Yep.
everybody. But
Mm-hmm.
some people's initial reaction is I'm opposed to this automatically. And then later on, their brain just keeps thinking about it, and then they just talk themselves into it later on. But that initial opposition is just their personality. They just don't want to change because that's just their initial reaction in life. And I know this because my mom's like this. If we try to tell her to do something a different way, she's immediately saying, no,
No.
we're not doing it that way. But then later she'll think about it. Either she talks with a friend or I don't know, I'm not there. But she comes back and she is more agreeable and we talk through like how to do it together. Um, and I've inherited that a little bit. Like I fight that a lot is that idea of like, but why are we doing it a different way? Why are we changing this? But then I also recognize that I force myself to think about it and realize, okay, maybe there's some merit. Let's think about this some more. Let's talk about some more details. But it is like if a manager is immediately triggered by pushback, they're for lots of right reasons, right? Like you could just be triggered by loud voices or anger, um, or you could be, you may have just grown up in a personality where you believe that the manager says something and everybody else just does it. And so any kind of questioning, any kind of pushback is seen as disrespectful. And it's important to
Um,
take aside some of those biases and just be willing to sit in those hard emotions and be willing to listen to them and acknowledge them, right? Even if they might not just, even if they're just emotional pushback, just acknowledging that, hey, yeah, this is tough, or yeah, this is a big change, or that, yeah, I get it. There's been a lot of changes recently. So this is just adding more work on for us for a little bit.
you made me think of two different things. One, the cultural differences.
Mm,
Nowadays, with some global organizations, there could be working together with a manager, let's say, in different country. I have clients in Europe that are working with, colleagues in India, let's say, and there's some
mm,
culture differences,
mm,
and how to navigate those. Um, when they say, yes, I understand, but maybe they're saying that because they don't want to lose the face, and how to
mm,
navigate these. So, yes, we will accept the change, yet nothing is happening.
mm,
So there also might be opportunity for noticing whenever we get triggered. What is it that's
mm,
triggering us? And then having those difficult conversations could be accountability conversation at that point, or really understanding. So what's happening? You were saying you
mm,
understand. And so a lot of clients have actually also this challenge around the culture and navigated those. And the other point that you're making about really the emotional regulation and noticing our own triggers, when they can be coming from, and noticing different personality styles, that all of us are different, that the other, and appreciating both our and respecting our process, and that somebody else might have completely different process doesn't mean one is better or another one. And especially for leaders, if they are very driven, focus on the task, getting things done, sometimes what can happen, they forget about the emotions. And there are people that are more focused, yes, getting things done, but also the relationships matter,
mm,
and the emotions. Let's get it done in a way that feels good for everybody. And if the manager is the type that's really focused just on the tasks and misses the emotional part of the change, that might not work really well. And people
Mm,
will push back. They'll feel disempowered. They could even quit in some extreme cases.
mm,
So really noticing and being aware of also not just our emotions, but also the other people's
yeah, yeah.
perspectives
I
and emotions.
I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I work with a lot of managers that are also the opposite of that. They care too much about the emotions, and they often then let the expectations slide, or um they care so much about making sure the other person's comfortable and cared for and being empathic that they often forget that they also need to hold people to a standard. How would you advise people balance that?
It's a great question. Yes, so that comes back to that self-awareness. What is my strength? And when my strength is sometimes turned too far, when it's at the extreme, that could be something that sabotages not only the working relationship, but as well the performance. And knowing what is the boundary that I need to also set for myself and have the difficult conversation. So maybe those managers, they might be afraid or not willing to have the difficult conversation and give them the feedback that they are not meeting the expectations. And noticing that, and rather
Mm-hmm.
than avoiding the conversation, really diving into that and noticing, yes, I don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings, but this is part of the job, and bringing it back to this is, I know validating this is difficult for both of us. This is just a difficult process the company is going through right now. And at the same time, we need to get this done and really focusing what are the next steps so that we hit our goal, our timeline. And being
Mm-hmm.
mindful of not slipping into, okay, I don't want to hurt their feelings. So I cannot
Mm-hmm.
give them the feedback really the way I want to,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but really being self managing and preparing for that difficult conversation that we always talk about, and
Yeah.
really bringing what is the and focus more on the tasks, on getting this done, and what are the steps we need to move it forward. What would you say? Anything else that you would add there?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's being more thoughtful about the process, and also, there's a great chart in restorative justice and restorative practices. There's a great chart that shows it's a 2x2 grid about, like, and one axis is accountability or support, I should say, and one axis is the expectation or standard. And the ideal is you're supposed to hold people to high expectations and give them the right support to get to that. So it's not that you're holding them accountable without you're not you're holding them to a standard without giving them the support they need to get there, or vice versa, right? Both are not helpful.
I love
It's
that
about,
perspective.
what is the standard? The standard is, we have to do this. And let's talk about what you need. Kind of what you were talking about earlier is understanding the person, understanding what do they need, why are they pushing back, and they may not even know right away. If they haven't done a lot of self-discovery or
Sure.
discussion, they may not know why they're pushing back. They feel that internal urge to push back and say, no, I don't like this.
Mhm.
So as a manager, you're not the therapist. It's helpful though to talk through with your person and kind of dig deep, like, what's driving this, and what that could tell you what they need. Do they need time to work on this on themselves? Do they need support, so like a peer group, to talk through this, kind of all the changes and the new system and how to use it together? Do they need more training? Do they just feel like they need more training, or they need to see you go through the training with them because they're not sure how it's going to look, and so that uncertainty, and you can walk with them through that. But it's different for everybody, and you won't know
Mm,
unless you ask questions. So when you get that pushback, it's asking those questions, and then also being flexible on, or understanding where your flexibility is. Like, do they have to switch over to this new system by October 1st? And that's the end date. But you want them to start working on it now so they get more comfortable with it.
yeah.
What are you flexible on? Like, how much can they do? Do you need to, create a more gradual plan for them to get into it? That might all be true. It's thinking through what does it look like to get them to that standard, but at the end of the day, also, it's that standard. So
Mm.
supporting them, giving that emotional support, acknowledging them, being empathic, and letting them know this is why, this is how, and this is how I'm going to support you to get to this point.
I love that. So both accountability standards and the support. You also mentioned, as you were talking, something else came to mind. Also noticing where they're at and maybe even validating rather than pushing back
Mm-hmm.
or kind of dismissing their concerns, but really listening. What would you say would be some questions that a manager could ask an employee to help them figure out the manager, like what is their concern? What's the root cause of their
Yeah.
resistance?
I would just ask that. What's your concern about this new technology system?
I love it. Very powerful question.
I think it's just that.
Yes.
I think it's just I think a lot of managers that are more feel internal pressure, they're going to ask why. Just ask
Ah,
what
that's
instead.
good.
Just like what's your
True.
concern about this new system? And
That
part of it is you have to control your tone, right? It's got to be a tone of
Mhm.
genuine curiosity. You have no ulterior motive of what you're asking. You really just are trying to figure out what is this? I don't know what's back here. Maybe you know, maybe you don't, but let's figure this out. Like what's the block here so I can support you. Um, and so maybe it is also talking through I know it's a new thing, maybe acknowledging the context and just asking, what's the concern for you here?
I love that distinction that you're bringing the what versus why question, because the why question could really sound almost judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
and then the
Yeah.
people's defense mechanism could come up, and they say, "No, I don't have any concerns." They could actually say, even though they have concerns and or worries, but their survival brain will get activated with the why questions, and so the conversation will not be productive or
Mm-hmm.
open, and the manager will not get good data.
Right.
And then some people wonder, people are not telling me the truth. That could be one of the reasons if the manager is asking a lot of why questions, especially with an irritated tone rather than
Mm-hmm.
with a sense of curiosity and openness.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Do you think it's worth role playing, showing what this could look like?
Let's do it. Let's give it a try.
Hey, Chris here. I really appreciate you listening to this podcast. And if you are listening to this podcast because you're looking to get better at these difficult conversations, well, if you really want to de escalate difficult behaviors and you want to be assertive without being aggressive and being true to yourself, I have a self paced course that can really help you because I know it's difficult being assertive in lots of different situations. If you're at work and you have to give feedback, if you have to deliver bad news to an employee, or deliver bad news to somebody that you care about in your personal life, or you're struggling to deal with defensive or sensitive people who are pushing your buttons and you don't know how to push back. It doesn't have to be that way. There is a world where you can handle these tough emotions with confidence. You can speak honestly and kindly while you're still being assertive. And you have the ability to manage emotional outbursts and stubbornness calmly, because these are things that I've had to overcome and learn. And so this self-paced course goes through all of those things. I've created this trust framework that helps you think through how to prepare for and how to facilitate hard conversations. And you hear a lot of it actually in this podcast as I talk about how to handle difficult conversations in lots of different scenarios. Currently, the course is closed for enrollment. There's a waiting list. If you are interested in learning more, enrollment will open up at the end of August and the beginning of September. So please go to the website. I'll link it down below, and you can learn more about it and join the waiting list if you want to hear more about it. But I'd love to see you there. All right. So let's demonstrate what this could look like and how it could work. And so in this situation, I'll be the manager. Lucie, you'll be the employee. And let's say we're working at a company where previously all the eight, and this is the example we just kind of used earlier, but all the HR functions, if she needed to change an address, enter timesheets, request time off, do performance evaluations, all that stuff was through either sending an email to HR or to me. But now it's a self-service system. It's changing to this so she can do all this stuff by herself. She doesn't need to go to somebody else. But it does mean that she has to do more about she it's more work for her because she has to put her timesheets in. She has to enter her time off request in that system and learn the system and all the things that come with it.
And
All the fun things that come with it.
I'm very overwhelmed and very resistant to change
Yeah.
because I already have so much to do.
Yeah,
And
I
this
get
is
it.
one other thing to think about and to address and to learn. I already learned so much.
Well, let's
Can it
jump
be
into it. Let's see what
delayed?
happens. Yeah, let's see what happens.
Alrighty.
Hey, Lucy, how are you this Wednesday?
Chris, it's okay. I'm still dealing with a lot of change here and overwhelmed with the workload. It's so much. Thought it would be
I get.
easier.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well,
So
listen, I
busy.
appreciate you. I hear you. You're overwhelmed. You got a lot of stuff going on, and I appreciate that you're still putting out high quality work. You're still doing a great job and everything. So I appreciate all of the stuff you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really trying, but it's hard. I'm so tired
Hey,
to wake up
listen,
so early.
ugh, listen. I hear that, and I hate to do this. Here's the
Oh,
thing. You
what?
know that you've been hearing some rumblings about some change in the company.
I was trying to
Um,
ignore it, hoping that it
yeah,
would be delayed.
I get it. Well, it's coming, and we can't ignore this anymore. Here's the thing: we are switching to a new HRIS system. So what that means is it's a new platform. It's called Paycom. We just are using this new system to do all the HR functions. So it's meant to be, we're rolling it out to everybody in the company October 1st. So I think everybody has like about a month to, a little over a
Just
month
a
to get
month.
used to it. But the thing is, all the stuff that you used to go to me for or go to, email HR for or call HR for, like, um, from what they tell me, you're supposed to be able to, change your email or mailing address on there, your personal information, update your marital status or benefits information on there directly. We're gonna all have to start putting our timesheets in there.
God,
I
it
know
sounds
that's
like a
not,
lot.
I know that's definitely
I
new.
mean, that's gonna take so much time. And I
Yeah,
think, if I have to do all these admin work now myself, then it will be less time and energy for me actually to do a great job, which you hired me for.
yeah, yeah. I get it.
So
It's
I really, I that's gonna be a difficult for me. Plus I'm already taking another training right now, so I can do a really great job at what I'm doing. So this is like an additional change that it's the worst possible timing. Can we postpone it for another 6 months? Plus, yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have the power to postpone anything for the entire company. Just for our
Could we do
team.
exception at least?
Exception. Yeah, I wish. Here's the thing. I wish I could tell you everything would be better, everything will be great and easy. It's a new system for me too, so I'm learning it. So I'm hearing that you're feeling overwhelmed because you're already juggling a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
What el- you know, what other questions or concerns do you have so I can bring that back up to my boss?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you. Just another one. I know 2 years ago we already tried some new system and they said, oh, it's supposed to do all these cool things. And there were so many glitches and it took so much time. So my trust in this new system that, I fear it's going to be the same thing over again. We are trying it for a
Hmm.
few months and it's just going to suck our time, energy, and then we have to go back to the old system anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we make sure I don't want to waste the company time. I don't want to waste my time. I like
Right.
to be productive and this is just really frustrating. So I don't want
Hmm.
that to happen again. To deal with some like any new system, there's gonna be glitches. And I remember the last time just yeah, I have somebody. When I ask them, I wait for like 2 days to get answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that concern because I wasn't here 2 years ago, so I didn't know that they tried this already.
Yeah, that was nightmare.
Yeah.
So I don't want
So
to go there
yeah,
again.
it'd be helpful, it'd be helpful for me if you just, I don't want you to spend a ton of time on it because it's the past. If you could just spend a couple of minutes and write an email to me of like some of the things you remember, some of the glitches. Like I'm hearing like that there was hard to get some people to support you
Yeah.
and to get
The
help on that
training was
stuff.
horrible too. Like
The
nobody,
training
they,
was
they just
horrible.
sent us like a manual to look for the answers there, but
Yeah.
like,
So it sounds like you would feel more comfortable, number one, if there was somebody that was a live person that
yeah,
could help you answer questions or at least train you into
yeah.
understanding the system better.
Absolutely. Somebody that I understand that is patient and can explain it to me in a simple way, what I need
Okay.
to do, or when there is a challenge or glitch, to know that I can call somebody rather than messaging and getting connected to a robot that sends me a link to some article that I have to take
Okay.
additional time to read. I want to have somebody that can help me fix it right away if there's something like that. If I
Okay.
even consider some change
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. I'm writing that down. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think those are good questions. I think that's fair. And I'm gonna be learning it alongside with you. So I'm happy to, as much as I can understand it and help support you, I want to support you. There's a um there's a little webinar next week. And I can look at your calendar to see if you're free. It's just like a half hour to like give an introduction to the system. I'm wondering if you'd be interested just to come in with me and just check it out, just to see what it looks like, so that if you have any other questions or any other concerns, we can bring it up now because we still got time to think through and bring some of these things up.
This week, it's really busy with work. I'm still transitioning from the other assignment to the new assignment now.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we just have a meeting and you can just share some bullet points with me? Would that work? Where we
Yeah,
can actually talk about
if
it
it's
rather
okay
than
with you, I can
watch.
do that.
Yeah, I think that would work better for me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's before our next one to one. So let's plan to meet at our next one to one, and I'll go through that stuff, what they talk about.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Chris.
it. Thanks, Lucy.
Me too. Thanks.
All right.
Good job.
All right, Lucy. Thanks for pushing back. Um,
Thanks for being so supportive and
yeah.
understanding and empathetic.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? How do you think that went? What did I do well? What could I have done better?
So, what you did well, there were many things that you did well. One of the things I noticed, you also included yourself in that process. So, it wasn't just me being the one who is struggling with this, but you said we, both of us, are learning. Um, which felt I wasn't put on the spot. This is me who is gonna have the only person struggling with it. So it was helpful. Another thing, your tone of voice was calm. You weren't getting triggered, upset, irritated. If you were, you didn't show it. So kudos to you. You were also open and asking questions. So it seemed you really are coming from a perspective of really wanting to support me and understand what are my concern and addressing them. So I felt heard, I felt validated, I felt safe actually, even to share what my concern is. And at the first one, I said, whatever. So I even, at the first time, I even didn't share about that 2 years ago.
Hmm.
But actually, you ask additional question and made it really safe for me to open up. Um, Plus, you were taking notes, so it wasn't just dismissing what I'm saying, my concerns, but you said, yes, I'll make note of it, and let's see how we can address that. So that felt very affirming and comforting from my perspective, which made me, okay, maybe this process won't be as, difficult, which made me help to start accepting it a little bit more, and the resistance was decreasing a little bit.
Hmm.
And you even had me, say yes to one step, which is talking about it next time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
even didn't push that against it. So you had me commit actually to one next action, while it didn't feel that overwhelming. And you seemed also to be understanding of my situation, so I didn't feel like disrespected or not understood. So well done.
Yeah.
Any improvements? I'm thinking, I mean, you did share the next steps. Um, an alternative, I'm not saying that would be better. An alternative would be also addressing some expectations and the timeline. You've mentioned, it
Hmm.
was beginning October, so we have a month. Now, within the month, would there be some additional steps? Then let's say by next week or in 2 weeks, we need to get done at least, you know, this portion. Is it the next payroll? I need to do additional training,
Yeah.
maybe some more
Yeah.
information as an alternative, like, or asking me like, what else would make it easier for you, that process.
Hmm.
There's just some alternative questions that I can think of right now. How was it for you when I was resisting? What came up?
Realistic is the word I would use. Realistic and nicer than some of the pushback I've heard to different change initiatives. I mean, but definitely realistic. And, for our listeners and for yourself, we didn't talk ahead like what the underlying pushback was caused by. And there was a couple of things, right? Like there was that feeling overwhelmed, feeling, tired from all these different change initiatives, which is fair. That's a real thing. I always think there's always a deeper thing, an emotional thing that's causing it. And it's also there was that lack of support. You've done this before, so it's actually reminding you of a bad experience. And I think that's the bigger thing. Because if I had said, hey, a new change, you got to email this new email every day, and when you do, they give you $5,000 cash, you'd be like, I guess if I have to, all right, let's do it. You would
Give
like
me
there'd be
those
no prep,
5,000.
right? You wouldn't. I always like that's the example I always tend to go to because it's something that's a clear value benefit that you're like, okay, I'll do that. That's easy. I'll
I
I'll
love
do
it.
anything you need me to
Yeah.
do for that. But it's
You would have my
reminding you of
buy-in.
right. But it's that it was really because you had a bad experience in the past. And that's why I want to know more about what that was in terms of the glitches so I can know even if I have the answer. Let's say I don't need to ask my manager, I wrote down your concerns, but let's say I already have all the answers, but I don't need to go through them and dispute them right now, especially when we have a little bit of time. Right. Like I have like
Yeah,
a week at least to come back and say, hey, I talked to my manager about some of your concerns and here's what blah blah blah. Um, maybe I have all the answers already, and that's okay. But now is not the time for me to dispute those concerns if I have time. I know somebody listening is going to say, well, what if I don't have time? What if it's like a new thing we have to do in like 2 weeks, and I can't afford to have them go back and forth on a lot.
great
I
question.
would just ask your permission to say, hey, listen, let's bring up your concerns. Like I'd still ask you, what are your concerns? What issues do you foresee happening? And then I would ask permission, like, hey, listen, I know some of the answers to this already. Would it be okay if I shared some of these answers?
Love that.
And then I would start sharing through that and talk and then having a dialogue. It's not just me lecturing you like, hey, you're wrong because of this. It's more because it's more of a hey, I know you're bringing this up and this is what I understand of the new change. What are your thoughts on that? So it's as you mentioned at the beginning, it's always a dialogue.
No,
And I think that's the key is if we had gone into it further or we had a follow-up role play or a session, I would have continued to
yeah,
have a dialogue about like, let's talk more about some of these concerns and what it means for you and what some of the answers could be. And they are. And so we'll dive deeper into those kind of things.
makes sense. So what I'm hearing, keeping the communication open and continuous feedback loop in a way
Yeah.
open. And not just by email. I will send you email with the bullet points so you can read it, but actually let's discuss it in the meeting. So I think
Right.
that also makes a difference, having those face-to-face or, Zoom to Zoom communication.
Exactly. Because so much is lost and then you don't get the tone. And
Yeah,
truthfully, also you just don't get as good an answer on email.
true.
If it's a 20-page email, you're not going to read all that.
Oof. No,
It's a lot
yeah,
faster for me to just tell you, or even if I just send you a video, a 2-minute video would be a lot easier to
great idea.
digest than
True.
a 2-page
Email.
email.
Oof, God, yes. So even a 15-minute conversation or even 10-minute, 5-minute conversation is better than email sometimes.
Yep. Yep. when I was helping to lead a technology change at my old company, I met with some people and I would show them the system and walk them through the system. And by the end, all of them said, "This is a lot easier than I thought it would be. This is a lot more
I
straightforward."
love that.
And
Hmm.
I get if they did a training, I think I did like group trainings or webinars on it first. And
Yeah.
I offered like if anybody wants to meet with me individually, I will meet with you and tell you how to do this and show you, walk you through every question you have. And a bunch of the people did reach out to me, and I reached out to some people who I knew would didn't want to reach out, but I knew that they would be kind of feeling some sort of way about this change.
Mhm.
And I was right, and they felt some sort of way, and I would bring it and I would show them the system, and I'd walk them through it. I'd have them do it. Inevitably, it was much easier than they thought it would be, and they were like, "Great, I love it. Let's keep using this."
Fantastic. Kudos to you for being really supportive and at the same time keeping them accountable. And what I'm hearing, another strategy in a way, kind of showcasing, walking people through the process. But I wonder even the storytelling, sharing the success stories
Yeah,
of people adapting this technology. And I wonder if that could be also having help of some employees that maybe already embrace that change. You've mentioned not everybody went to ask you.
right,
So maybe
right.
there was somebody that's like, yeah, I got it. I wonder if that and that have a buy-in that say, yes, I'm excited about this change. There could be employees like that. I wonder if there would be opportunity to leverage those employees and
Yeah.
have them support the other people too, as additional support
Well,
possible.
now you're going into change theory, right? Now this is just building that coalition of the willing of people who have already embraced it. They're already the early adopters, and they're going to help you spread your message.
Mhm.
And it's useful, and people say that because it's useful. That's how it works. And there's always going to be those few people that refuse to do it no matter what.
True.
Um,
Yes.
and like we always talk about, if in a work situation, you got to be willing to hold people accountable to things, and it's not
Mm.
you know it's not mean, it's not micromanaging, but
Mm.
if you continue to allow people to not follow a standard, it just sends a message to everybody else on your team and to them that
Absolutely.
that it's okay not to do what you're supposed to do, that you don't care. It just makes things worse.
So sounds like there's really if we start closing this, both sides to that change, and not only being curious and open and empathetic to how it is for the other people and how the process would work for them. What is their own process adapting change? What do they need
Mm-hmm.
for them to embrace it with more ease? What could be the obstacles and how can we support them to get through that process? But also being aware of our own states, our own biases, our own triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to navigate our own emotional fitness in a way. So even change could be an opportunity for a manager to grow to the next level of leadership, possibly
Yep.
by really being aware of their own state as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
these situations will happen.
They're always
It's
gonna
part of the
happen.
part of
Yeah,
any
it's
organization and life.
yeah. And even you said it's the change, right? It's it's a lot of change, and in the role play, so there's a lot of different things going on. Like, I wish I could tell people that there's gonna be less change, but I think change is just ongoing forever. Things keep changing, so it's a part of that resiliency, and that not just resiliency, but also that grit to persevere through that as well.
They say what doesn't kill us make us stronger. So
Yeah,
and
I don't know if I don't agree
you
with
don't
that
like that one.
statement. I don't like that statement, but
Let's rephrase that then. So any change is an opportunity for us to practice our resilience to grow.
that makes more sense. I
A little
also
bit
like.
more
Have you ever heard the
gentler.
one change is mandatory, growth is optional?
Oh, I like that one.
I wish I could
I'm
remember who
gonna
said
keep
it. It
that
was
one.
some
That's a good one.
well-known. expert said that.
I love that. Oh, well, thank you to all of you that are watching us or listening, because seems like you are committed to your growth and you're taking
Absolutely.
that option.
Yeah. And if I will say, if you could take anything away from this, is if somebody pushes back, just ask more questions to understand why.
But
Right?
ask what questions?
Ask what, right? You want to understand why, but you're not asking why, but you're understanding, right? It's if
Yes.
I had just if I had just left with Lucie is overwhelmed in that role play, I would have just focused on how do we get stuff off your plate, which I actually, that's another story that you should think about too as a manager. But I would have focused on that. I would have focused on like micromanaging her schedule of how do we take stuff off your plate? How do I take some of your tasks so you can do this? But that's not the real issue. She's
Yeah.
feeling burned and upset by previous attempts, and she's still scarred a little bit from that. So
Mm.
she wants to make sure that she wants to feel safe that this is going to be permanent and going to be okay for her, and she's going to feel supported
Yes.
through it.
Well
But ask
done.
questions, ask good questions.
And when we talk about asking questions, please feel free to also ask us any questions. Any additional roleplay scenarios that you would like us to roleplay, please let us know. Ask us questions too.
Yeah. So like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. Give us a review if you've been listening. If you've been listening for any amount of time, please give us a review. That's always helpful.
We
I
love
think you hear,
feedback.
yeah, we love feedback, but also that's just the name of the game in the world we live in with the
True.
algorithms.
That's true. If you want other people to learn to communicate better, please do share our
Yeah.
resources so all of us can have easier time to communicate with others and be happier and have better lives as
Yeah.
a result.
Yeah. Well, Lucie, thanks very much. It was great.
Thank you, Chris. I'll see you next time.
See you next time. See everybody next week.
See everybody. Bye.